Welcome to your week in review here on WINN FM 98.9 for the period February 3rd through 8th. Making the news last week, St. Kitts and Nevis addresses potential impacts of U.S. immigration policies. IMF to visit St. Kitts and Nevis for economic review. Canadian High Commissioner Designate talks St. Kitts Nevis relations and Trump tariffs.
Consumer Affairs Department report high compliance with VAT relief holiday.
St. Kitts Nevis Energy Minister assumes chairmanship of OECS Council of Ministers Energy, tariffs and its implications for every sector.
St. Kitts and Nevis police intensify vehicle checkpoint operations.
Now, the details. During the February 6, 2025 broadcast of the Roundtable, St. Kitts and Nevis Prime Minister, the Honourable Dr. Terence Drew, addressed national issues and international policies, including the potential impacts of U.S. immigration policies and tariffs on the Federation. The Prime Minister highlighted the importance of citizen security, respect, and dignity in the face of potential mass deportations from the U.S. Prime Minister Drew acknowledged the potential impact of tariffs imposed by other countries on the cost of living in St. Kitts and Nevis.
Can you imagine that? You're in St. Kitts and Nevis, have nothing to do with what's happening, and your cost of living going up because there's tariffs that one country put on another country. So it means we'd have to come together and pool our resources more to survive in this unpredictable, volatile, aggressive world that we are living in. With respect to the tariffs can have an impact on us and will have an impact on us. Again, can trouble the cost of living.
Dr. Drew emphasized the need for St. Kitts and Nevis to become a sustainable island state to mitigate the impact of external factors such as tariffs and global instability.
That is why we need a sustainable island state to sustain ourselves so that when they have their issues are not impacting us so greatly down here. When tariffs hit, I don't care whoever, any leader has to deal with it. These are things you can't go and just tell the people, how are you going to take down the tariff? You can't promise people you could take down tariff. That has nothing to do with you, but your cost will go up because you are depending too much on other countries. There should always be an interdependence, but we have the possibility of becoming more sustainable, self-sufficient in a region that is relatively stable compared to the rest of the world. And so, yes, unfortunately, the tariffs can have an impact on us. So I continue to call that world leaders would seek to always create the best scenario for all of us who are living on this planet. That would be our call. So we need a sustainable island state. We need to be as self-sufficient as possible. And it starts with energy.
The Prime Minister highlighted the potential of geothermal energy to achieve energy independence.
If we get the geothermal out and we have at least 400 megawatts, St. Kitts and Nevis together only use about 50 megawatts. So you have another 350 megawatts minimum. You know what you can do with that? Electricity. You have enough electricity, water and food and internet. Because then you have the energy to drive data centers and so on. Create your own. Be able to drive your servers and so forth with the high energy. The great amount of energy that they would require. You can supply that.
He emphasized that energy independence would shield the country from the volatility of global oil prices and other geopolitical issues. Responding to a journalist's question about U.S. immigration policies and potential deportations, Prime Minister Drew affirmed the government's commitment to treating all citizens with respect and dignity.
All of our citizens will be treated with respect and dignity, irrespective of everything else. Because underlying citizen security is that every life is precious and every citizen, resident, must be treated with that humanity and dignity.
Prime Minister Drew outlined a policy underway with recommendations from regional security forces to manage the return of deportees.
Once these persons, we have a process. Once you are seen to be deported from the United States of America, we get all of your information with your background check. When you come in, you are not just immediately released. You have to come in and be questioned and asked and a profile done and so forth. And then based on that is when an action is taken.
The Prime Minister clarified that each case would be assessed individually to determine the level of security risk.
So if you come in, let's say you were just a peaceful person in the United States, but you just didn't have your papers, you're not a security risk to us. So, then that can go forward. But if let's say you come out of prison with a serious charge, you are a security risk for us. And then the approach is different, because we will not tolerate in this country any unlawful behavior.
Despite the security concerns, Prime Minister Drew reiterated that St. Kitts and Nevis would welcome its citizens back home.
We are open and we will accept our citizens from wherever they are. This is their home. We tell them this is your home and you are welcome back. There is the constitutional rights will be respected, and if they're in another country and that country wishes to deport them based on the laws, then we can't tell a country what to do with its laws.
The Prime Minister also acknowledged the rights of other countries to enforce their laws regarding deportation.
Officials from the International Monetary Fund are set to visit St. Kitts and Nevis next week to assess the state of the country's economy and provide guidance for the year ahead. The visit comes as the IMF projects moderate economic growth for St. Kitts and Nevis, aligning with broader growth trends in the Caribbean region. The fund noted that, quote, overall, St. Kitts and Nevis' growth is projected to remain moderate in 2025 and 2026. Growth is expected to be supported by renewable energy projects and a rebound in tourism, which has returned to pre-pandemic levels, end quote. One key recommendation anticipated from the IMF is for the country to reduce its reliance on the Citizenship by Investment Program, CBI, which has been a significant source of revenue but remains vulnerable to external pressures. For months, St. Kitts and Nevis' Prime Minister Dr. Terence Drew has been advocating for economic diversification, emphasizing the need to move away from the dependency on the CBI program. Last year, during an interview on ZIZ, the Prime Minister stated that, quote, our economy was 60 to 70% dependent on one sector that is unstable. Diversification is critical for any country that wants to remain stable. We have learned from our past experiences with sugar and tourism, and now CBI, that no economy should rely on just one pillar, end quote. Revenues from the CBI program declined in 2024 as the government introduced reforms to address various challenges, including international scrutiny and legal issues. As part of its diversification efforts, the government is prioritizing renewable energy, an area that has recently received praise from the IMF and other international organizations.
They're going to be transitioned because we're trying to wean ourselves off of CBI. It was a bad strategy to bring the government to depend so heavily on CBI. We see what happening to CBI. And if you have your economy depending so much on CBI, which can, be affected at any point, what do you think? You're at risk, you are vulnerable. We want to get away from that vulnerability. That is not sustainable. What is sustainable is us taking the energy of the earth and the energy from the sun and the wind that God gave us.
The IMF's 2024 Article 4 consultation on St. Kitts and Nevis highlighted that economic growth slowed to 3.4% in 2023 due to delays in public and private sector investment projects. However, it noted that the economy is expected to strengthen with the implementation of renewable energy initiatives. Since that praise, the country has cancelled the planned utility-scale solar and battery storage project. The IMF's upcoming review will provide further insight into the country's economic trajectory and the effectiveness of its diversification strategies.
High Commissioner Designate Brenda Wills of Canada recently appeared on WINN's Island Tea on February 5th, 2025 to discuss the deep-rooted relationship and bilateral ties between Canada and St. Kitts and Nevis. The High Commissioner Designate also discussed the broader implications of recent U.S. trade policies, particularly President Trump's tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China, and the possible consequences of these tariffs on consumer prices and international trade dynamics. Canada and St. Kitts and Nevis have a 41-year diplomatic relationship, which has marked significant milestones. High Commissioner Wills highlighted the foundational ties built over decades, encompassing personal connections, economic collaboration, and cooperative initiatives across multiple sectors. Most notably, establishing the Canada-CARICOM Strategic Partnership in October 2023 has paved the way for enhanced collaboration in building inclusive economies, bolstering regional security, and advancing climate resilience.
Prime Minister Drew went to Canada for that, and there's three areas of focus there, which is building inclusive and sustainable economies, bolstering regional security, and advancing climate resilience. So we're going to build on that. That's going to be my role here in my tenure for 4 years. I'm going to be the High Commissioner. And so I look forward to maintaining and strengthening those relations with St. Kitts and Nevis.
Wills discussed the importance of climate response mechanisms, indicating that Canada works closely with Caribbean nations, including St. Kitts and Nevis, through organizations like SEDIMA to enhance disaster response and recovery efforts. Climate change remains a pressing issue for the region, necessitating strong partnerships and prompt action from Canada to build climate resilience. Another topic of discussion was the Electronic Travel Authorization ETA system launched in June 2023 and its potential impact on tourism and commercial exchanges between the two nations. As Wills pointed out, this system simplifies travel for citizens, fostering the flow of tourists from Canada while facilitating easier promotional and investment opportunities for Canadian businesses in St. Kitts and Nevis. Wills emphasized ongoing efforts to enhance trade relations and identified key sectors such as renewable energy, infrastructure, and clean technologies as having substantial potential for growth. The agenda includes a more profound exploration of business opportunities in these areas, which showcases Canada's readiness to build upon existing trade ties.
And on the commercial front, my background's actually trade and investment. So you mentioned business, and so one of the things I'm going to meet with the Chamber of Commerce after this and explore where are there opportunities for Canadian business to pursue down here. So then hopefully we'll be getting even more Canadian business travel.
One crucial issue addressed during the discussion was the recent announcement of tariffs imposed by the U.S. on Canada, Mexico, and China. These tariffs could have far-reaching repercussions on international trade, particularly between U.S. and Canada. Wills note that Canada's relationship with the U.S. is one of the strongest globally, particularly regarding trade and border security.
We announced with the U.S. A pause in our respective tariffs and our commitment, and that was based on Canada's commitment to stronger border security.
The 30-day pause on the planned U.S. tariffs was a step towards solidifying economic cooperation amidst the complex backdrop of international trade tensions. The current economic climate suggests that implementing tariffs could lead to a myriad of economic challenges, including disruptions to supply chains and increased consumer prices. According to economic analysis, tariffs typically impose higher costs on imported goods, often passed on to consumers. Such a move could raise prices for various goods, including essential commodities and trade items, compounding consumer and producer challenges. For instance, recent projections indicate that tariffs could increase the price of imported goods by an average of 10% and even higher for domestically produced items, which might jump by 14%, which indicates a significant inflationary pressure on consumers, which could promote shifts in purchasing behavior and overall economic activity. Wills acknowledged the uncertainty surrounding the international trade landscape with the active presence of tariffs.
But the trickle effects would be hard to estimate, other than it would disrupt supply chains and cause increased prices for consumers and for producers, and the need to find alternate sources.
This reflects the broader apprehension about trade relations between Canada and the U.S. and how these tariffs affect a spectrum of international partnerships across CARICOM countries. Wills underscored Canada's long-standing commitment to CARICOM countries as a steadfast partner, reinforcing the importance of collective goals among Caribbean nations. The framework established by the Canada-CARICOM Strategic Partnership will enable further discussions on shared priorities while fostering collaboration on economic and environmental challenges. During her conversation with host Hortensia, Wills expressed her enthusiasm for her role as a High Commissioner and her eagerness to navigate the intricate balance of trade, investment, and diplomatic relations among her 7 accredited countries. Having met with various leaders in St. Kitts and Nevis, Wills is optimistic about the burgeoning opportunities for collaboration and the integral role Canada can play in the region in the future. High Commissioner-designate Brenda Wills' remarks illuminate a multifaceted relationship between Canada and St. Kitts and Nevis, marked by history, economic potential, and shared challenges, such as climate change and the implications of tariffs. As the economic landscape evolves amid tariff discussions and their potential impact on consumer prices, its influence resonates throughout Caribbean communities, necessitating strong cooperation and proactive measures to foster resilience and economic prosperity. The upcoming weeks will be pivotal as stakeholders pursue pathways towards mutually beneficial agreements in light of recent geopolitical developments, ensuring that the bonds between Canada and St. Kitts and Nevis remain robust and forward-looking.
The Consumer Affairs Department encourages all businesses to comply with the VAT Relief Holiday Initiative implemented by the Government of St. Kitts and Nevis. Businesses are encouraged to pass down the cost-saving benefits to the consumers, and similarly, consumers are urged to report businesses that are suspected of being non-compliant. Tricia Delaney, Communications Officer at the Consumer Affairs Department, was a guest on the February 5 edition of In Focus and shared how the Consumer Affairs Department ensures transparency and fairness in the market.
We continue to educate the public on their rights, and we urge consumers to report any suspicious business activities that they may encounter. We also try to work alongside with the businesses and just to ensure that they know what their responsibilities are during this tax reduction time, which is to pass on some of the savings to the consumers. Now, I don't expect that they'll want to pass on all, but we are saying pass on some to the consumers at least.
According to Delaney, reports of non-compliance on the part of businesses have been few, but she advised the consumers to always keep their receipts and not be afraid to report or challenge businesses about their deception.
Happy to say it hasn't been many complaints, but there have been complaints that businesses have not reduced their prices despite the lower VAT rate on their receipts. So in some cases, businesses have maintained the same total price, but a lower VAT rate is on the receipt, which is deceptive and it is unfair to consumers. So in these cases, we have to investigate and then we take our findings to the cabinet. But like I said, it hasn't been many cases like that. In a time like this, where we have the VAT relief holiday, we are asking consumers to keep their receipts and compare prices from before the tax reduction. We are also asking them to report cases, because what we find is people don't report the cases. We'll go online and go on Facebook, and then we'll see people talking and people will be saying this is happening, but no one actually called in or came into the office and reported the cases. Also, we want consumers to be vigilant and ask questions when they are checking out. Don't be afraid to challenge the businesses if you feel like you are being overcharged. Don't just think you're being overcharged and not ask a question. Ask questions. Get your answers. If you are not satisfied, come and file a complaint.
The Consumer Affairs Department also confirmed a small number of reports of price increases at some establishments, but owners, when questioned, associated those costs with other external factors.
Well, while the VAT has been reduced, we have noticed that in a few cases, and when I say a few cases, it's a small number, businesses have increased prices, but they are claiming it is due to other factors such as supply chain costs, inflation, or increased operating expenses. So what we do, we investigate those claims and we try to see if they are justified or if they are trying to offset the VAT reduction and pocket the savings or gain more from the savings. But like I said, it hasn't been many instances where we saw any price increases, but we have to keep in mind there are other factors at play when it comes to pricing.
The Consumer Affairs Department monitor compliance by business using different methods, including price comparisons, comparing current prices to pre-2025 prices, consumer reports, investigating reports made by consumers, and receipt analysis, reviewing receipts to ensure the correct VAT is applied.
St. Kitts and Nevis welcomed regional energy ministers to the third Council of Ministers Energy meeting, which the Honourable Conrad Maynard chaired. The meeting, held against the picturesque backdrop of the Federation, focuses on the theme Sustainable Energy, Creating Opportunities for Reinventing the Economy of the OECS. The gathering marks an essential step toward reinforcing regional cooperation and commitment to sustainable energy solutions, which are crucial for the Eastern Caribbean's economic and environmental resilience. In his inaugural address as chair, Minister Maynard expressed gratitude to the outgoing chair, Honorary Corrine James of Grenada, commending her leadership that established significant progress in advancing the energy agenda amongst member states. Minister Maynard articulated the urgency and importance of the sustainable energy dialogue.
Sustainable energy is no longer simply a goal. It is a pathway to unlocking new economic opportunities, driving innovation, and building resilience for our small island developing states. Transitioning our energy infrastructure to sustainable energy sources characterized by being indigenous, clean, and renewable, presents a significant opportunity to reinvent our economies. When combined with the energy efficiency measures, this transition creates a multiplied effect. While the challenges posed by climate change are well known, the solutions are within reach.
The minister underscored the potential of various natural resources across the region.
We are blessed with an abundance of natural resources across the region: wind, solar, geothermal, and the ocean itself that can power our economies sustainably. We are, after all, small island states, but large ocean states. Harnessing these resources requires vision, cooperation, and most importantly, a commitment to long-term change that benefits both our people and our planet.
He noted that for St. Kitts and Nevis, pursuing a sustainable island state agenda is not merely an ambition but an urgent imperative. Minister Maynard acknowledged the supportive resolution passed by the National Assembly regarding geothermal energy. This resolution reflects a collaborative spirit between the federal government and the Nevis Island administration dedicated to enhancing energy security and economic sustainability. The theme of the meeting resonates deeply with the need for a paradigm shift towards green economies, where sustainable energy is positioned at the forefront of economic discourse.
The jobs created, the industries built, being vulnerable to global energy price shocks to being more self-sufficient and resilient. By prioritizing indigenous energy sources, we reduce our reliance on imported fuels, which conserves foreign reserves and boosts our energy independence. The eventual financial savings on impacts can be, as mentioned, redirected into local economies, allowing for reinvestment in community development and social programs.
Minister Maynard emphasized the essential human element of the energy transition, reinforcing that its success hinges not only on technological advancements, but also on benefiting all citizens, particularly the most vulnerable. In a subsequent social media post, he reiterated his commitment to leading St. Kitts and Nevis through investments in renewable energy and regional collaboration, affirming, quote, "With challenges come opportunities, and by working together we can harness our abundant natural resources to build a cleaner, more sustainable future for our people. Let's make bold moves towards a thriving and self-sufficient OECS," end quote. Therefore, the conference is an essential milestone in the collective march towards a sustainable future, opening dialogues that may define the region's path forward.
OECS Ministers of Energy have concluded what is being described as a successful two-day meeting, resulting in the drafting of a roadmap for the full implementation of sustainable energy. Speaking on Wednesday afternoon, St. Kitts and Nevis' Minister of Energy, Conrad Maynard, outlined the key outcomes of the meeting, emphasizing the collective commitment to advancing sustainable energy initiatives.
We had robust discussions, and importantly, we had some very informative presentations and insights into the energy sector and its possibilities in the region of the OECS. One being the development of an energy roadmap, which was coined as a sustainable energy greenprint for the future of renewable energy and energy sustainability in the region going forward.
Additionally, Minister Maynard revealed that the ministers have agreed on a decade of action to ensure the successful implementation of the roadmap, highlighting the region's long-term dedication to energy sustainability.
The other important outcome, I think, of the Council of Ministers meeting here, the exercise that we had over the past 2 days, is the Bastia Declaration of the OECS Decade of Action for Sustainable Energy Development. In this declaration, it basically gives an outline of all the efforts that we intend to take over the next decade to ensure that we have sustainable energy development.
Given the current geopolitical landscape, the feasibility of achieving these goals remain a key concern. Head of the OECS Energy Unit, Chamberlain Emmanuel, addressed the challenges and targets, providing insights into how the region plans to navigate potential obstacles.
The Council agreed on 10-year window with milestones. So we have our initial task as a commission in terms of coordinating a coalition of partners and member states to fully flesh out the green bill by the end of this year, and that we will get going right away on. However, in a preliminary way, we have projected both a regional and national minimum target for renewable energy penetration of 30% by 2035. That's the 10-year target at a regional level, but also a minimum of 20% at each member state by 2035.
Minister Maynard also discussed financing strategies, outlining how the necessary resources will be mobilized to support ambitious energy transition.
We have effectively mandated that instead of simply identifying the items to be done, that there must be timelines associated with them. And given that we face an existential threat, really, with the situation of the fluidity of fossil fuels and their prices and the economic woes that we are facing as a result of that fluidity, we have no choice but to make these things now a reality. It's no longer a case where it is a dream that is that seems years off. We're living the reality right now when we're spending, I understand in one territory, 40 odd cents, US cents per kilowatt hour, when renewable energy through solar can give us 5 and 6 cents. So it's an economic reality that will force the results that we need. That is why the green print, for instance, is particularly important, because we want each member state to know that this is what is expected and when it is expected, and to provide the resources or the direction on how it can be done.
With U.S. President Donald Trump pausing the 25 and 10% tariffs on Canada and Mexico while maintaining those on Chinese goods, the question arises, what does this mean for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis? Dr. Terence Martin, professor and host of Money Matters, provided insight into the ongoing situation.
Now, it must be clarified that there's now a 30-day moratorium on these tariffs, right? As well as some of the retaliatory tariffs. Because of conversations that have since been had, regardless of if we're operating under the assumption that these tariffs will go into effect, then what we can expect in the Caribbean and especially in St. Kitts and Nevis, we could look for expected trade disruptions and higher costs overall. You know, as we're aware, many of our Caribbean brothers and sisters rely heavily on imports from Mexico, from China, from Canada, and either directly and indirectly through the U.S. supply chain. Now, especially if it's through the U.S. supply chain, we will see and actually those costs pass on directly. Now, if tariffs increase, the cost of these goods in the U.S. Could lead to higher prices for imports into the Caribbean region. Now, St. Kitts and Nevis might face rising costs for consumer goods, electronics, building materials, and automobiles. I know we have a high propensity of importing automobiles, okay, which are often sourced from, the Asian countries as well as through U.S. distributors.
St. Kitts and Nevis, being heavily reliant on tourism, could experience significant impact on the local sector. Any disruption in global trade could affect visitor spending and overall economic stability.
We also could look at if impacts on tourism, right? If the U.S. economy shows and slows down due to these higher costs of imported goods, it could lead to weaker consumer spending, right? I got to remember that the U.S. economy is driven by consumption. So if consumer spending is reduced, with tourism being a price elastic industry, consumers will either look for cheaper alternatives or abandon travel altogether. All right, so this could potentially reduce the number of arrivals from the US, even from Canada, right? If you look at it from the retaliatory perspective as well. So higher costs of goods could also raise operating expenses for things like hotels, restaurants, cruise-related businesses as well. So now we're going to have costs rising in all of our main income sectors.
Dr. Martin also highlighted that the local manufacturing sector would not be immune to the trade war. He underscored the far-reaching implications for the Caribbean region, emphasizing the potential challenges in sourcing raw materials and maintaining export competitiveness.
Countries like ours that engage in light manufacturing, such as apparel production, things for computer chips, etc., we could see higher costs for raw materials there. And that could put some pressure on those businesses. Who knows, could potentially affect employment. So if tariffs disrupts trade between the U.S., China, Caribbean ports used for transshipment and re-exporting like Jamaica, Dominican Republic, they may see reduced shipping activity, right? So it's comprehensive.
Another concern is the fate of excess produce not taken by those countries affected by these trade wars. How will this shift impact local businesses and food security?
We've heard talks. We saw Justin Trudeau come out and said that he's going to have far-reaching tariffs. He's not just looking for broad industry strokes. He's going down to the most minute of a product that could be consumed, and he's going to put tariffs there. I think it was estimated to be close to $125 billion. Now, if these tariffs that are meant to be retaliatory against the U.S. go into effect, and again, there's been a 30-day moratorium following conversations with Trump, the U.S. might divert excess agricultural products, example, grains, dairies, meat, into the Caribbean markets. Now, this could potentially lead to cheaper prices, however, could impact local farmers. If St. Kitts and Nevis exports through U.S. intermediaries, tariffs on U.S. goods could disrupt trade flows as well, reducing opportunities for the Federation. We're ramping up our agricultural production, so if we're exporting either in the agricultural sector or light manufacturing sector, same thing.
As global trade tensions continue, the implications for small island economies like St. Kitts and Nevis remains a critical area of focus.
The Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force enforces road safety regulations by conducting a series of vehicular checkpoints. According to members of the High Command, the police will be proactive in its enforcement efforts to deter reckless driving and improve compliance with the traffic regulations. Assistant Commissioner of Police Travis Rogers said the police are targeting not only daytime offenses, but nighttime offenses too, such as one headlamp, glow lights, and brighter red and green lights in the grille of omnibuses. Rogers informed that 81 tickets were issued during one nighttime vehicular checkpoint operation, adding that the public should expect similar operations more frequently.
We will be out in our numbers. We will be out as frequent as we can. We know we have some challenges, but we have already started the year well, and we want the public to know that we're going to be consistent and we're going to be driving those operations at night to curtail those offenses.
However, the police are aware of situations where some people make attempts to undermine vehicle checkpoint operations by sending out electronic notices to the wider public. Assistant Commissioner Rogers explained how detrimental such decisions can be to police operations.
Some people who are sending out these WhatsApp are only thinking, hey, look, we're going to get a ticket. That is the avoidance of getting a ticket, $100. But what they're not thinking is that who are traveling in those vehicles, because it may be a traffic stop, but from traffic stop we could have solvability of major crimes, because our criminals, for lack of a better word, are moving around in different vehicles, rental and private vehicle alike. And if you're going to alert the people that, hey, there's a traffic stop or vehicle checkpoint at point A or point B, then that criminal would get that information and be deterred, whether make a U-turn back around, and that same vehicle could have had firearms, which are the major contributor to our capital crime murders. So it affects us, and we want the public to know that it's not all the time we're just there for traffic offenses. We're there holistically to deal with other criminal offenses. There can be the movement of drug trafficking via point A to point B, movement of firearms and other contrabands. So we often get pushback when persons do these kind of things. And we want them to understand, because crime affects all of us.
In addition, Deputy Commissioner Cromwell Henry said it is considered to be an obstruction when people help others evade the police.
And it could be considered an obstruction of the police duties. It is an obstruction because, as the ACP just said, you may have people who are carrying contrabands, illegal firearms. They might be drunk. They might have something illegal, and you warning that person, you assist them in evading the police. So because you tell them police is under the bridge, for example, they turn down in Buckley's. So they have the truck full of firearms or stolen goods, and because you warn them, they gone down. And the police may be looking for him, may have been looking for that person.
That's right.
Because we expect that a truck should be coming this way with illegal goods, and you warn the truck and tell the truck, police down there, and so the truck evade. You assisted that person in evading the police, and that could amount to obstruction.
The public has been encouraged to continue to support the police in its road safety efforts and ensure to adhere to all traffic regulations.
With U.S. President Donald Trump imposing tariffs on some of America's closest allies, Mexico, Canada, and China, the Caribbean region could face serious economic consequences. The region depends heavily on the United States for food and other essential commodities, and these new trade restrictions could lead to increased costs and supply chain disruptions. The Trump administration tariffs, 25% on some imports and 10% on others, are set to take effect on Tuesday, February 4th, bypassing the North American Free Trade Agreement. Antigua and Barbuda's Prime Minister Gaston Brown, speaking on the sidelines of the recently concluded CAF meeting in Panama, acknowledged the potential fallout. He suggested that the issue should be a major topic at this month's CARICOM Heads of Government meeting in Barbados.
Propose tarifications that they're hyperboles, because if indeed the United States were to introduce tariffs in any significant way on a broad variety of goods, clearly it will impact significantly in growth and development within the Caribbean region. And perhaps this is one of the issues that we ought to address at CARICOM at our next meeting, and for us to issue a joint statement or to write jointly to President Trump and his administration to ask them to consider the impact of any such tarification on these small vulnerable countries in the Caribbean, because again, I mean, increase in prices at this time, considering too that we had to deal with the Telegraph. If we have to deal with the let's say negative impacts of increased prices, then clearly it will undermine our living standards by increasing cost of living. So tarification is perhaps the largest threat to the Caribbean region of all of the policies that have been announced by the Trump administration.
Like the broader Caribbean, St. Kitts and Nevis imports a large percentage of its food, with data up to 2023 showing imports valued at $200 million. With the lingering effects of the pandemic-induced global inflation, residents continue to feel the sting of rising prices. Accountant Schneidman Warner recently explained the local impact of Trump's tariffs, essentially an additional tax.
We have a tiny market. But if countries are forced to cut their prices in order to keep the price of goods attractive when imported to the United States, you know what they're going to do? When they're selling it to other countries who don't have the bluster and the power as United States, to increase the price. So something that they're willing to sell to the United States for $100, when they add a 25% tariff on it, it enters the United States at $125. They may say, well, look, to St. Kitts, we'll sell it to you for $110. So we could try and recover some of the money we've lost by selling it cheaper to the United States. And it's not just St. Kitts. To other countries in the world, it's quite possible that they may sell their goods at a higher price in order to recoup some of their costs. If you cannot make it one way, you'll find a way to make it another way. It is not practical to simply move manufacturing as Donald Trump is suggesting. If you want our markets, bring your factories here and let them manufacture the goods here.
Trump announced a 25% tariff from imports from Canada and Mexico, and a 10% tariff on imports from China. Energy resources from Canada will face a lower 10% tariff. The White House justified these measures by stating, quote, President Trump is taking bold action to hold Mexico, Canada and China accountable to their promises of halting illegal immigration and stopping poisonous fentanyl and other drugs from flowing into our country, end quote. In response, both Mexico and Canada have vowed to retaliate. Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau confirmed in a media engagement that more than US $155 billion worth of American goods will be subject to counter tariffs.
Tonight, I am announcing Canada will be responding to the U.S. trade action with 25% tariffs against $155 billion worth of American goods. This will include immediate tariffs on $30 billion worth of goods as of Tuesday, followed by further tariffs on $125 billion worth of American products in 21 days' time to allow Canadian companies and supply chains to seek to find alternatives. Our response will also be far-reaching and include everyday items such as American beer, wine, and bourbon, fruits and fruit juices, including orange juice, along with vegetables, perfume, clothing, and shoes. It'll include major consumer products like household appliances, furniture, and sports equipment, and materials like lumber and plastics, along with much, much more. And as part of our response, we are considering, with the provinces and territories, several non-tariff measures, including some relating to critical minerals, energy, procurement, and other partnerships.
Mexico's president has also confirmed that directives have been given to impose tariffs on American goods. Additionally, Trudeau highlighted another consequence of the decision on Americans, as the increasing number of mass deportation will likely impact the country's food supply.
I want to speak directly to Americans, our closest friends and neighbors. This is a choice that, yes, will harm Canadians, but beyond that, it will have real consequences for you, the American people. As I have consistently said, tariffs against Canada will put your jobs at risk, potentially shutting down American auto assembly plants and other manufacturing facilities. They will raise costs for you, including food at the grocery stores and gas at the pump. They will impede your access to an affordable supply of vital goods crucial for U.S. security, such as nickel, potash, uranium, steel, and aluminum. They will violate the free trade agreement that the President and I, along with our Mexican partner, negotiated and signed a few years ago.
You are listening to the Week in Review here on WINN FM 98.9. Thank you for listening and have a productive week.